Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a flip through of my reading journal for February, and I'm going to talk about all of the books I read in February and show you the book review spreads or pages that I dedicated to those books. So this journal, this is a notebook therapy journal, and this is the month of February. This is my first year ever doing a book journal or a reading journal, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out my monthly cover pages. For January, I just did this, and I never really figured out what to do with February, so I just left it blank for now. I'm not sure what to do. Maybe I was kind of interested in trying out like a stats page, like such and such pages read, such and such books read, average rating was this. The most read genre was this, maybe something like that. But we'll see. Okay. The first book that I read in February was The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I loved this. I gave this 4 stars. This is a really wholesome, heartwarming book about... It takes place in this fantasy world where there are magical people and magical children, and our main character, his name is Linus, and he's like a very strict, by the book, unemotional, logical, rule follower type of person, and he's a caseworker. His job is to go to orphanages for these magical children and spend a day there and make sure that the children are being properly cared for and that they're not being abused, and then everything's on the up and up, and then file his reports away and then go on to the next one. But in this book, he gets a special assignment to go to an orphanage for a month, which is much longer than he usually spends. And he is told that this is a top secret assignment by upper management, and they tell him the children at this orphanage are more magically dangerous than any other children that you've ever seen before. No one even knows that this orphanage exists, so everything has to be of the utmost secrecy, and you have to remain neutral, and you can't get emotionally attached. So he goes on this assignment, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but long story short, he meets these magical children, and he develops like this really beautiful bond with these kids and starts to change and see things a lot differently. Some of that, strict studiousness starts to fall away. If you like Disney Pixar or, heartwarming stories, you will love this. And it also features, our main character, Linus, is queer, and there's a little bit of queer romance in here. And it's very touching and heartwarming. So I love this one. Highly recommend. Like a really cozy, comfort, heartwarming, fuzzy, warm and fuzzy type of read. Also, the characters just jump off the page. I've seen some people complain about this, and they say that it's written too young adult. I think that's fine. The writing style works for the book. Okay, some of y'all are going to eat me up for this one, because I know a lot of people love this book. This is like a short novella. It's like less than 100 pages. This is The River Has Roots by Amal El-Motar. I think I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. This just did not work for me. This is like a magical fairy tale. Excuse me, I'm trying not to burp in the middle of my sentence. I'm so sorry. Okay. Excuse me. I think we're done. Suffice it to say, this just was not my cup of tea. I felt like this was style over substance, and I feel like we could have gotten more out of the page length that we got. It just personally did not work for me. I didn't feel any sort of emotional connection to the characters. I mean, credit where credit is due. The writing is beautiful, and the author did a very interesting job of creating this fairy tale, folktale type of story, but it's just not for me. Okay, next we have my favorite book of the month of February that I read, and in fact, I love this book so much that it's still my favorite book that I've read this year. I'm now at the end of March when I'm filming this. I cannot stop thinking about this book. I loved this book so much. This was a 5-star read for me. I I love this book. Okay, so this takes place in Manchuria, 1908, and our main character is a fox spirit named Snow, and she is on like a revenge quest to avenge her daughter who was murdered. And we follow her on this revenge quest. So we have point of view chapters from Snow, and then our other point of view character is an old man named Bao. He is a detective, like a private detective, and he has a sort of like a paranormal ability. He's able to sense when people are telling the truth or telling a lie. And this helps him in his detective investigations. So he is commissioned by this man who owns a restaurant. This restaurant owner went outside in the middle of winter one day, and there's a woman frozen to death. Her corpse is like on the front stoop, and he doesn't know how to identify her, and he feels really worried about like her spirit being at rest and her family not knowing. So he hires this private detective Bao to find out this woman's identity, find out who she was, and inform her family of her passing so that her spirit can be at rest. That's where it starts. Now, along the way, these two characters, Snow and Bao, go on quite a journey, and their paths keep coming closer and closer together until they intersect and meet one another. And this book is kind of like a murder mystery, but it is so much more than that. These two characters are on a fate quest, okay? Like, the hands of fate are divining in their lives. It is so interesting, the backstory that we get from these two characters and how their lives intersect. I cannot recommend this enough. I love this. I ate this up. It still blows my mind thinking about this book. As we progress through the story, the author has done an amazing job crafting this story. Chapter by chapter, a little bit more information is revealed and the layers are pulled back just a little more and a little more until we see the full picture in focus and everything comes into focus and we finally understand the secrets behind all the mysteries that are going on in this book. And it's done so skillfully. The writing craftsmanship here is incredible. And the ending is so touching. I cried. It has a beautiful, poetic, spiritual, lovely ending. Absolutely love this book. Also, I just want to highlight another aspect of this book that I love. This author is able to write action sequences where there's fighting and movement and things like that so well. I don't know if you've ever read a book where, like, two characters are in a fight or they're scuffling around a room and it's like the author has difficulty getting from point A to B. Like, they're tussling on the floor and then they're on the couch and you're reading this and you're like, wait, how did they wind up on the couch? I thought they were tussling on the floor. Okay, that problem is not here. The action and fight sequences are so incredibly vivid and so intense. The author is able to, it's like watching a movie in your head when they happen. It is so good. You're able to so vividly and clearly picture every single moment as the characters move closer and closer, to getting into a physical fight or, pulling one another or stabbing somebody or slapping somebody. Anytime it's happening, she builds tension so well and you picture it so well in your mind because she has such a great skill at pulling the scene from her head to the page using her descriptive words. It's excellent. Love this book. I love it so much. I can't recommend it enough. It's still my favorite book that I have read so far this year. Okay. Moving on to a very popular book. This is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soul by V.E. Schwab. Okay, I listened to this on audiobook. I gave this 4 stars. Sorry, I have a very squeaky chair. It's in the background here. So the reason I didn't give this 5 stars is just because I feel like there was a little bit of bloat that could have been edited out in Alice's chapters. I don't feel like I feel like some of Alice's chapters didn't add a lot to her characterization or her story, and I feel like maybe they could have been edited down. That's the only reason. That's what held me back from giving a 5-star. This is a really great and interesting book, but I feel like it's a little bit mismarketed. This is often marketed as a toxic lesbian vampire book, and eventually we do get to that. It does turn into that. But I think that my interpretation of this book is a little bit different. It's a little bit, it's pretty slow burn. This book is pretty slow burn. But I think this book is more of a character study on how 3 different women handle being turned into a vampire and the horrors of vampirism. And I feel like we explore through the story, through this novel, the effects of vampirism on someone's life in many different ways. So this book follows 3 different female protagonists. We have Alice, who is Scottish, and she's in modern day. She's a college student. Then we have Charlotte, who is from London in like the 1800s. And then we also have Sabine, or Maria. She starts as Maria, but she changes her name to Sabine, and she's in like 1500 Spain. So this is a book that's kind of difficult to describe because it's so expansive over time and characters, but it is a very interesting character study. I just feel like if you are looking for like a saucy, sexy, toxic vampire romance, this will leave you disappointed. However, if you are somebody who likes vampire novels that go a little bit deeper, that explore characterizations and how characters change over time, and how they struggle with vampirism, and if you find vampirism interesting, I think that you will like this novel. I did really like it. I love it. It is a very interesting book. It's beautiful. Next we have 2 novellas. This is The Knot and the Butcherbird by Alex Harrow, and then we have Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Okay, so The Knot and the Butcherbird, this is on Kindle Unlimited, and it's 36 pages. Just go read it right now. For those of y'all that don't know, I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and so is Alex Harrow. She's from my neck of the woods. She went to Berea College, which is a college that I almost went to. It is not far at all, literally just a stone's throw from where I grew up. So anybody that's from like my neck of the woods, the 606, if you know, you know, I'm gonna root for them and love what they do, unless it's just absolute trash. This is great. This is 36 pages, and wow, she has packed a whammy of a story into these 36 pages. She has utilized that page count so well. This is the only thing I've read by this author so far. I know she's written several books. I do plan on reading more. This was just my little introduction to her. This is so fun, especially if you are from Appalachia or enjoy Appalachian things at all. Our main characters are Shrek, who is like the town record keeper, and then our villain is Sir John of Cincinnati, which is hilarious. This is funny, it is interesting, it is deep, it is heartwarming, there's queerness, there's fantasy. For 36 pages, I feel like you gotta check it out. And then we have Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. I listened to this one on audiobook, and the audiobook was like an hour or 2, I want to say. This is like a must read. Oh man, this is so good. I cried. The ending and the final passages made me cry. Like, I was so touched. So this is a story that deals with the Magdalene laundries, or the Irish laundries, if you know about any of that. It's kind of an obscure period of history. Some people don't know about it. And our main character is this, it's this man named Bill. I think this takes place in the 80s in Ireland. And Bill is like a father. He has several daughters that he's putting through school and watching grow up. And this book is so, so deeply touching because we get to see fatherhood and like masculinity through the eyes of a deeply caring, introspective, and sensitive man. This character is so quietly caring. It's beautiful to read his thoughts and his point of view, the way that he worries over his daughters, and the way that he cares for others and goes on to break social norms and conventions in order to help someone that society frowns upon and would deem very scandalous. It's beautiful. It is so stunning. It's very heartwarming. It's very inspirational. So, highly recommend. I gave this 5 stars. This is another 5-star read. This is Greenteeth by Molly O'Neill. This is a cozy adventure fantasy book. Loved it. I gave this 5 stars because after reading it, my enjoyment of this book was so high that I realized there's just nothing I would change. I feel like there's nothing that I was missing out on. It fired on all cylinders for me. It was great. I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved the experience. I loved the ending. It was just fun. This is a cozy, sweet little book. This is about a trio of characters who go on a quest to save their town. And one of our characters is a Jenny, which is kind of like a swamp ghoul or a river spirit. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. And she very much keeps to herself and minds her own business. And one day she is, tidying up her lake, and a human gets thrown into her lake. And the human is this woman, she's a witch named Temperance. And she's been thrown into the lake to see if she'll sink or float, a la Salem witch trial style. She kind of gets excommunicated from her township because they have a new vicar. But something is off with this vicar. He's not quite right. So they team up with this magical merchant named Brackus, who's one of Jenny's friends. And they go on a quest to basically save their village. It is so heartwarming. It's cute. It's fun. There's a lot of interesting folklore elements in here from England and Wales and Arthurian legends, which I was not as familiar with, but it was incorporated well, and I thought it was interesting. Super cute little book. The ending was so wholesome, and the friendship and kind of sense of sisterhood that develops between Jenny and Temperance is so well done. I loved it. They kind of challenge each other, and they have disagreements, but they were able to work it out really well and have like such a good resolution and understand each other so deeply and forge like this deeper bond. Loved it. Okay. Here's a book I really did not like. Oh boy. This is When the Tides Held the Moon by Vanessa Vida Kelley. This book this takes place in like the early 1900s in New York. Our main character is a Puerto Rican man named Benny Caldera. He gets commissioned to build like this super fancy elaborate tank. He doesn't know what it's for, but he builds it because he really needs the work. It turns out that the tank is being used to capture a real live merman named Rio. And when he finds that out, he feels totally guilty and horrible about it. So he gets to know Rio, who is being kept prisoner in this tank that he's built. They become romantically involved. I should have rated this even lower than I did in retrospect. I would give this 2 stars. This book is straight up problematic. It has issues. If that is not something that bothers you, the book has issues outside of that too. The pacing is a mess. The ending is a mess and doesn't explain anything and leaves like a giant plot hole. So I just really did not like this one. This book features The Greatest Showman, where they had like a freak show type of thing. So that's what's going on in this book, and it's insensitive and gross. It is so weird. And the way that there was a woman who read this and reviewed it, and she left like feedback and criticism for the author. Well, not for the author, but in general, she left a review talking about how she felt uncomfortable with how the author portrayed fat people in this book. I didn't personally get that or notice it. I am a fat woman, but I just overlooked it or didn't notice it, I guess. But this woman is valid and entitled to that opinion, and she left that in her review. She felt like it was very insensitive and offensive the way that this author depicted fat people. The author personally reached out to this woman who left this review and basically argued with her. I think that's not cool. The author is not a fat woman. She is very thin and fit. So I just find that weird. I wouldn't recommend this one. There are better books. Don't be fooled by the cover. I know that the cover is gorgeous. There are other books with beautiful covers to read. Okay, this was like a 4.5 star read for me. This is The Bookbinder Secret by A.D. Bell. Oh, I loved this. This was so fun. This was like a very cozy book. Like, you just want to curl up with a cup of tea and read this, but it's not low stakes. The stakes get very high and a bit intense. So our main character is Lily Delaney, and she works like in the 1900s at a bookbinder. She is a bookbinder. And while she's going to see a client and they're talking about their book collection, and she's looking at their workbench, and she finds this old book that someone had tried to burn. And as a bookbinder, she's very curious. So she picks this book up and she's inspecting it. Why would someone burn the book but then save it and not fully burn it? Hidden in between, the binding of the book, she finds like this old letter, and the letter details, murder, a love affair, a secret murder plot, riches, all this kind of scandalous stuff. And she is so intrigued that she has to find out what happens next. So she basically goes on a quest all across England, taking the train from here, there, and everywhere, from Manchester to London and all sorts of places, trying to find the other letters. It turns out that whoever wrote this letter has hidden other letters telling their story in other books, and she tries to track them down. And along the way, at some point, someone really does not want her to find out what's going on in these books, because she starts getting stalked and things go from there. Totally loved this. It was very interesting. Our main character is a little bit of a hot mess. She's a little bit messy. She's late to work. She's involved in a love entanglement that's kind of a mess. She's kind of like on the hot mess express through this book. But she's interesting. I loved the journey that she went on. She is very likable in her fierceness. She fiercely wants to protect her father. She's passionate about her bookbinding craft. This is a well-developed, strong, interesting woman. And the story is interesting and cozy and fun. And the prose is beautiful. Like, the author has done such a great job with the prose here. So if you're someone who appreciates that, I would totally recommend this. This is a historical fiction. Next we have a big boy. A big boy book. This was a long book. This is Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Everybody knows this is a super popular book that came out many years ago. 20 years ago now, almost. In fact. This is high fantasy, okay? Which is kind of exhausting sometimes. High fantasy is the type of fantasy where there's like an established, in-depth magical system and lore and, all of that. Okay, this is great. I gave it 4.5 stars. I knocked off half a star for one reason. Because Brandon Sanderson uses the word maladroitly 4 times in this book. And I'm sorry, you only get one of those, okay? You cannot keep taking me out of the moment by putting the word maladroitly in here. That's one of his favorite words, and he just kept throwing them out there. Maladroitly, if you don't know, it is a word that means like to be stunned, like when you're fighting and maybe you get hit in the head and you're kind of like staggered or knocked back or stunned. That's basically what that word means, maladroitly. You just can't get away with doing it 4 times. That takes off half a star for me. Otherwise, the book is excellent. If you like high fantasy, Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or anything like that, you would probably love this. This is great. The world building is excellent. The magic system is so excellent. It's so much, like, it would take me like 15 to 20 minutes to like explain it all. So I'm just going to suffice it to say that it's very well done and it's very great. It's interesting. We have interesting political intrigue, high stakes, scheming, plotting, betrayals, backstabbing, and the characters are very interesting and so well developed. In fact, he has done a great job with our female main character. She is so interesting to follow. She's very deep and multi-layered. Next we have Once There Were Wolves. This is my first book that I've ever read by Charlotte McConaghey. I hope I said that right. This is kind of like a murder mystery, a bit. Like, the murder mystery is kind of in the background. The foreground of this book is, this is about a woman who is kind of like she's like a biologist. She studies wolves. She's super passionate about wolves. And she goes to Scotland to work on a wildlife project where they're going to reintroduce wolves into the wild to try to help the climate and the nature there, because the deer population has become overrun and it's affecting things. It's like a whole chain reaction. The problem is that when her and her team of other scientists and biologists get there, they are faced with a ton of pushback from the local townspeople, the local farmers. So they're going to this like local town hall meeting, and people are absolutely so angry. You know, you get a woman who stands up and is like, what about my son? You know, if he's standing outside waiting for the school bus to come and pick him up, what if a wolf comes and eats him? You know, like stuff that's kind of utterly ridiculous. Anytime that something big happens in a small town like this, there's always, you know, naysayers. The conflict between the local people and the team of scientists is very interesting. But what's most interesting, what is completely spellbinding, is the wolves. I gave this 5 stars. This is a great book. This author is very interested in nature and in particularly climate change, and she writes a lot. She has a lot of passages about nature and wildlife. Like, she will go on and on for passages. Like, there's passages where the main character is looking through her binoculars at the wolves, seeing them interact and run through the wilds and play with each other. And she describes seeing their dark, haunting amber eyes through the trees and all these things. If you are someone that has ever heard a wolf howl and gotten chills and thought, wow, wolves are such majestic creatures, you would love this book. The wolves are fantastically described. You feel like you're right there watching them in the wild on the Scottish Highlands through the moors with the characters, seeing their grace, their beauty, their mystery. It's a beautiful book. It's very well written. And also, it has some very complex human characters. The human drama in this is very interesting and compelling. And I really enjoyed that element too. So, yes, this is technically like, you know, a murder mystery, but that is certainly kind of falls into the background of the story, and the human drama, the wolves, and all of these things kind of become more in the foreground. Okay, next we have a book that I really did not enjoy that much. This is Fruit of the Flesh by Ivy Ophelia. I know that Ivy Ophelia, this author, has written several books. This is the first book of hers that I've read. I listened to this on audiobook. This book is something else, okay? I don't know how else to say this. So The premise of this book is kind of marketed as these two people who are kind of in an arranged marriage, but they're both hiding a secret. It's implied that they both have a secret desire for killing. I thought that was an interesting concept. That is not at all explored, okay? We get two people who are in an arranged marriage with the whiniest female main character who picks petty fights and arguments for no reason and is so immature, literally like a toddler immature, crying and freaking out and throwing things, okay? And a very passive, almost comes off as uninterested type of husband. I did not like this. There is quite a bit of spice in this. The spice is ridiculous. This is a mild spoiler, okay? But there is a scene in this book. The male main character, he's an artisan. He works with clay. He makes statues. He's a sculptor. He has a whole studio. There's a spicy scene in this where he jerks off into a mound of clay, okay? So if you're someone who thinks you're down to clown with that type of thing, maybe you will love this, okay? I am haunted. I need to talk to my therapist about this. This book was not for me. Oh, lordy. What a book. Okay, now we have the last book that I read in the month of February, I believe. Okay, this is the last book that I read in the month of February. This is called The Ghost Bride. I read this because I thought the premise was very interesting, and this is written by the same author, Yangsze Choo, who wrote my favorite book of the year that I've read so far, which was The Fox Wife. This is like a 3.5 stars out of 5 for me. She wrote this a few years before The Fox Wife. There's a lot of potential here, but I feel like it needed a bit of maybe reworking. So the premise is very interesting. If you've never heard of ghost brides, it's like this ancient Chinese tradition of marrying your deceased child to someone. And so basically, our main character, Li Lan, is living in Malaysia in the 1900s, or actually maybe it's late 1800s. I can't remember. But her family is bankrupt, and she's approached by a wealthy family whose young son has recently passed under mysterious circumstances. And they feel like his soul is not at rest, and they say if you marry him, his soul, if you marry him and wear black and mourn him for the rest of your life, you can live in our compound and we will provide you like a luxurious life. You will always be cared for. You will never want for anything. You'll have an amazing wardrobe and clothing and a beautiful estate to live on, which is a very appealing offer in the time of smallpox and bankruptcy. But she's very called and led by her heart. She doesn't want to basically to never experience love, for the rest of her life, to be basically celibate and married to a ghost. So she's thinking about what to do and how to handle this offer. I can't say much more than that at all without spoilers, but I will say some of the problems that I had with this story are that the plot was just kind of meandering. It felt very meandering and kind of draggy. Also, our female main character is perhaps a bit immature. She is just 18, and now it makes sense for her to be immature as an 18-year-old, sure. But it is a bit much. It is a bit difficult to read and be in this character's head at certain points in time. Now, there is still a lot of interest here. This is still a very interesting book. There's a lot of Chinese folklore that's going on in the story. Spirits, all kinds of things like that. Paranormal elements. And that stuff is so well done and very intriguing. But unfortunately, I do feel like the pacing and the meandering of the plot kind of really bring down the reading experience of this one. Overall, I would still recommend this. I just feel like it is not the author's strongest work and that this could have been developed a little bit more into a better story. Okay, that is everything that I read in the month of February. That was a lot of books and a lot of yapping. I need to go drink some water. Have you read any of these? Would you read any of these? What did you read in February? What was your favorite book you read in February? Please talk to me in the comments. I have loved reading and book journaling. I feel like I keep learning more and more each month as I go, and I'm really enjoying the process. And I love yapping about books, as you can see. So, I'll see you guys in the comments and in my next video. Later!